Welcome to Chirny's podcast, episode 1. The following is a conversation between myself and William Alexander. Will is an actor. He's a creative collaborator with me. We are currently writing Goat vs. Tortoise together. And we talk about life as a professional artist. It gets a bit heated. We disagree about a few things. Are you a professional first? Are you an artist first? That's kind of what we talk about. I really hope you enjoy the episode, and remember, craftedcoffeecompany.co.nz is the sponsor. Will and we both studied at art school. I studied music and you studied?
Acting at drama school. Yeah.
It's amazing how we connect study with like career. It's like, what did you study? And then, your job, your money. But it's like, I'll speak, I play piano. I like creating art. Tell me about you've got a creative career, don't you?
Yeah, I would say I'm an actor. This is my career, I would say. Yeah, I went to drama school and learnt what I could from that, and then have been putting that into practice in acting jobs. Yeah, so I would say that's my career.
Now, how much do you identify with your creative profession?
It comes and goes. When I'm employed, I like to identify with it. When the play is good, or whatever I'm in is good, I enjoy being identified with it. But sometimes I feel like there's more to me than just that one box of just being an actor. And actually, recently I've been thinking that I have more freedom in my art when I don't identify with it. I think because when I identify with it, I'm kind of a bit frozen, and because I don't want to seem stupid or mess up, and for that to come back on people's opinions of me, Will Alexander. So I'm a bit more careful, I guess.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that it helps me not to be identified with my art.
So when you have an identity as I am an actor, there's a box, the world has expectations of you, and when you do anything that's not that, people get confused?
Or, in my mind at least, judge me as a failure.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Because I studied music, and often a question which is like, so are you full-time in your music?
Yeah.
It's like, do you... And since, I work in the coffee industry, I've got a job, so people are like, do you still play the piano sometimes? Are you planning to do more,
Right.
Are you going to go professional?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So if I'm working in a cafe, which I have done in bars and things, and then people say, are you an actor? Or it comes up that I'm an actor, then is my identification with an actor that can feel a bit like I'm being judged, or at least I believe like I'm being judged.
It's a meme, it's a stereotype,
Can't be going that well then, you're working in a bar.
You're working in a bar, and there was one... a customer at the cafe said exactly that, we had a debate about politics, and I don't want to make this a political podcast, but he's an older person who loves stocks and bonds. He uses a financial advisor as his career, and I joked about the fact that I said property is theft, and he got very upset. And he asked me what I studied. When I told him I studied music and I was serving him coffees, he goes, well, what are you doing working here if you studied music? And it was the classic power strike down, you're an artist, you say, but here you are with a regular job.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I was a true artist, I wouldn't care, and I wouldn't be telling you the story, reliving this trauma, which I obviously feel.
Yeah. I find it also works the other way when I am actually employed as an artist or an actor, but don't identify with it as it bolsters my self-confidence. I find that if I can maintain this detached kind of
A cool detachment.
identify or be as little identified as possible, I feel more free because I'm just no one. I'm just someone who works in a cafe or whatever part-time job I might be doing. If I can maintain that identity but then still be on stage, I feel like I've got nothing to lose because I'm nobody.
I was just thinking, like, in terms of practicality. So it's like you've got a job as an actor, and things are good. Do you have any practical, like, things you've learned about prospering in a creative? Like, what is good?
Yeah.
What do you have control over in your?
How personally you take things, I think, would be something that would help your longevity. If you want to have a career as an actor, not taking things personally, because you're going to go for lots of auditions and you're going to inevitably get turned down for loads and loads of things. And if you can stick at it and not take it personally because for whatever reason I wasn't right for that role, and keep going and keep doing good auditions, then you will inevitably get a job. And
I've got a question here. As I've started to think of my career in terms of what I used to do, what I currently do, and what I hope to do in the future.
Right.
Because sometimes the old work that you used to do pulls you back in, where people call and say, "Mark, can you please do that thing you used to do for me?"
Yeah.
And I learned to have the courage to say, I don't do that anymore. So the question to you is, in your career arc, what is some stuff you've done in the past, some stuff you do now, some stuff you want to do in the future?
Yeah.
What do you hope to leave behind?
Yeah. The stuff that I used to do and would like to bring back more of is the things that make me feel like a child and full of wonder. And I think that's cameras and getting things on film and getting together with a group of other people to create something together. In my experience, whenever this has happened, most of the time it has not been for profit. It's usually been a communal friendship kind of endeavor. And to be honest, that's when most of the art that I've been most proud of has been created. And I would like to get more of that kind of communal art production in my life, which has been throughout my life. I've done things with childhood friends, making movies and things, and would like to bring that back. Something that I have done that I don't want to do anymore would be, well, I'd like to do less of it anyway. Auditioning for advertisements can sometimes be painful. Although, hey, I would love to do an audition and get paid $10,000 for 2 days of filming, but it can sometimes be challenging to go and say, hey, this is the next pizza that's going to be really good, and still have some integrity about what my intention is as an artist. Surely
your dignity has a price.
Yeah, 10 grand is pretty close to it.
Like, it's, as I haven't done this with myself, where I need to kind of like put a dollar sign next to all the stuff in my portfolio of marketable skills. Because often it's like you get an offer, hey, we need a night person to do the bartending this night. Can you cover? And your answer is just like, I guess so. Instead of...
because of the money? Yeah,
but instead of saying, I can do it for $10 more than you usually pay me, as a potential weapon, I guess it's kind of like just negotiating skills. It's like you can do more of your art, your genuine art that is not monetized, if you develop more sort of negotiating skills, bravery, commercial savviness in your commercial world. So instead of being less passive, you're checked out. This is something I'll actually assert. I'll be like, I think artists need to be more switched on financially so they can actually do their real art with more resources, as opposed to being a cork in the ocean going, this is not what I really care about, this is not what I really want to do. It's
financial things. I don't really want to, yeah.
But it's like, when they come along, it's like, right, time to negotiate more money so that I can do less of that and do more of the art.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I kind of have a different perspective on that, in that I would rather minimize my expenses rather than maximize how much money I can make so that I can have lots of resources. I would rather spend as little money as possible and do things as cheaply as possible.
Yep, because great art doesn't need lots of money.
No, like
you can make.
With the equipment that we've got just in our pockets, we can make statements. And I think then, if you have the time to make whatever art you want, rather than what art will pay your rent, then you can really make the statements that you want to make and really make the art that you want to make without it being tainted even slightly.
I wonder, because if we take this whole concept, because in the last 10 years since art school, I've always thought about the fact that there's not many jobs in music. I studied classical music, composition, and a lot of my friends, they're classical performers. They play cello, violin, piano. They study for 10, 15 years, become incredibly proficient at their instrument. And there's this funnel which pushes them to become teachers. And there's this, in the music world, classical music especially, there's this feeling of like, I want to be a professional player who tours or plays in a quartet. But maybe I should but there's a hustle in that. You've got to sell yourself, got to promote yourself. And they might do it for a season, and then they become a teacher. Teacher is kind of where you settle with music.
Yeah.
Where you simply have stability and income. You can get the trappings of the middle class life if you can afford a house, whatnot.
Yeah.
Or maybe a tenured position at a university. So me watching because I went into the coffee world, coffee business, and it's kind of how I pay my bills. And my friends in the art world, it's like, they are professional artists, but those two words feel weighted differently for different people. Is it, are you an artist more, or are you a professional? Like, are you earning money, or are you making art?
Yeah.
And what combination of those two things? So, you've just to kind of take you at your word that you've established that your dignity has a price of $10,000. How do you reconcile your existence as a professional versus your life as an artist? What do those words mean to you?
I try to minimize as well. Ideally, I would like to do the art that really matters to me and that has a message that I care about and can align my own beliefs with.
And then what?
How do you mean? Like, and then what? How do I pay the bills?
No. You've established that you don't have bills. You've got a very minimal lifestyle.
Right. I live in a van and I go dumpster diving all the time.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's right. And now you make beautiful art. And then what?
Well, hopefully change the world with it.
Now, can I pin you down to what you actually want from that? Because if I can point some things. One is recognition from your peers. Some people, they will put a lot of time. Like, I make some art with the sole purpose to influence one person. For example, this is actually a real hypothetical, but I arrange an amazing cover of just some celebrity, Post Malone. Like, I do a really cool, quirky, artistic cover, and Post Malone and everyone from art school goes, wow, what Mark made was amazing. Then Post Malone tweets out and shares that thing. Oh, I've actually got an example. I covered a Chimp Spanner song on piano. I learned his song and played it. It was very impressive. And the artist himself in London responded to my creation and said, wow, Mark, that was great. Good job. And that was actually the payoff. It was recognition from a peer or someone above.
Okay.
That's one thing. So recognition from your peers, changing the world with a measurable impact, making money, getting a better agent who can get you into Hollywood films. Like some people I know, they make art and they get Spotify views just so they can get better festival gigs.
Right.
So that's the goal. So you want to make this art. Is there a giant thing, like, do you have any goals creatively or professionally? Other than, I want to make art.
Yeah, I do. I do. And I want to steer away from doing art just to influence my friends and to just have someone famous who I respect tweet about me or whatever. I would like to steer away from that and continue down this road of trying to not identify as much as possible with my art, so that it's not about me at all. It's just something that happened through me because of my environment and because of our culture and society, that whatever it is that I've created has appeared, like Goat versus Tortoise.
Yes.
This is something that I think could be a really good mover and shaker in the world. Really, it's a conversation that I want people to have, or at the very least, I want Goat versus Tortoise, which is a musical that Mark and I are working on and have been working on for the last 4 years. Yes. I would love Goat versus Tortoise to be a conversation starter about the human beings and their effect on the environment and nature and the world and the absolute insanity of some of the things that we've done.
I agree.
And if other people, my peers and my parents and my friends respect me for that, then that's
a bonus.
Second on the list to actually doing something good. So to create things that I think matter to human beings and the world, rather than to make people like me more, or to impress people more.
Oh, that's good.
Or to make money.
And making Goat versus Tortoise, one thing, because we are writing this together, we're going to be performing some shows together in the near to medium length future. And it's a piece of art that we are both excited about. And because to me this is like a real artistic endeavor for me personally, when I go to like organize shows and get performers to participate, money's not the motivator. I don't want the shows to be profitable. I want to make the show to be good. I want people to show up and say, wow, that was better than I thought it was going to be, and it had some interesting things. It made me think, and there's a response I've been getting from audiences in small shows that I've been organising in the last 2 years, and what I'm planning to do is to try and like put a giant business model above it, where I basically take some like running profitable concerts and movies or music shows or singles. There are people who are called music business people whose job it is to make money out of music. And my personal mission, I guess this is like where creative professions can have lots of different ways to go. Like some people can find a niche that they do very well for themselves creatively and whatever, paying the bills. Acting, certain niche, they get a TV show, whatever, and they get to do what they want to do, and they don't have to do adverts or whatever. And they also don't have to hire and fire people because they've got a niche which works for them. For me personally, I'm interested in like learning about the business side very intentionally, being like, right, how do I do a concert that sells out and makes a profit and dignifies all my friends who are so generous to, because like, dignify them with proper pay. Because when me and my creative friends do projects, we hardly ever accept payment from each other. We often, we try to pay each other. We say, no, I'm here because I want to help make this thing with you. And people get really weird with money with art because this is like the best day of the week, or a lot of us have day jobs, and the idea of getting paid to do our little side gigs messes up the transaction. And I'm trying to figure out a way to kind of like start with money first, have a budget, have lighting, have a venue, have people to greet people at the door, and have people I know and also people audition for the spots, for the music and acting, and have a way of paying people in a dignified way, but also allowing people who want to volunteer their time to do that. So that was my thought lately, to try and have like a tendering situation where people can put bids as to like what they can contribute to the whole musical, and they also say how much they want to be paid, and they sort of point to the budget and offer it. That's a big ramble about what's been rattling around in my head, but it was government spending and budgeting that made me think of this, because the way the government works is they have like, no, I'm not going to tell you how the government works, I don't know how the government works, but like a department will say, we have a budget of $30 million to build these highways. $30 million. And then all the people who can do that, Fletcher's and other companies, will offer, say, I can do this and I'll charge this much.
Right.
And someone else will say, well, I could do that, but I'll charge less. Well, I can't do the concrete, but I can do the lights. And they all tender for it. They all put their bids in. It's a bidding auction. And then the government chooses the ones that they can afford and that contribute the work they need, and they do the project. So I wanted to do that with art, where I make the budget public and say I've got 10% for lights, 8% for sound, 20% for music, 10% for dancing, choreography, and make that budget public and say, are you a professional artist who would like to do this work, which is really exciting and awesome, but you get to be paid, and how much do you want to be paid? And also I would try and find some real professionals and like offer them more money, say like, I want to give you a good gig in Christchurch because you're talented or whatever, but allow other people to get the work for less. It's trying to find a way where it's like, and the kind of promise I'm trying to do is like pay everyone more than they asked for.
And what's your intention with the concert? Is it to bring people together? Is it to give these people a platform? Well, is it to make money?
There's two things. One is to, like, what I'm passionate about is making jobs. Is like making work that pays people to make art. So I'm thinking this, because on the back end is like how you get it put together. How do you get a show how do you get a Broadway show together? It's like, well, you need $300,000 to hire all the actors and stuff. How do you do that? Well, we have union rates, we got this and that, and there's systems and ways you do it. I don't live in Broadway, so I can't access those resources. I live in Christchurch. How can I make something amazing, but also pay people fairly and better than they normally would, and not just ask for volunteer help that people are willing to give? And it's like, and that's on the back end on the creation. So now we create it, because what I struggle with is I try to make something with volunteer help, and I feel unwilling to get people to do things for free when it's a commercial project or people are paying $10 on the door. It's awkward when the financial transactions are not transparent or clear. Is it a hobby? Is it professional? Are we doing it big or are we doing it small? And in my experience, big things tend to need money. So how do you do big things? How do you do something that needs a budget? And how do you hire people in a way that's fair and dignified? That's kind of...
Yeah. I find it kind of changes the relationship between whoever it is who's doing the paying and the artist who's receiving the money.
In what way?
In that you're hiring me to do something that you want. If I'm an actor and you want to put on something, you're going to get an actor, and then I'll be there. You can tell me what to do. Well, I guess I'm talking about the difference between hiring someone and collaboration. But if you're...
When you have a production, you might have 30 people in the cast. You can't all collaborate. You need...
No, I know.
So how do you dignify... Like if you have 30 people in the cast, I think some of them need to be paid.
Yeah, I agree. Ideally,
and then they do the jobs they're told to do.
Yep. So, by someone who has a specific vision.
Yeah, so I do agree money changes the relationship, but sometimes it's for the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Because sometimes when I do favours for people, it's like you can't expect them to be on time or at the door, because it's like they're just helping you shift the stuff to the dump, doing a tip. You can't be like, you told me you'd help me move my house at 10:10, but when you pay a professional, they show up on time, they deliver the result. So it's like, and making a movie, the best movie in the world needs an artist with a vision and a director and a budget and some collaborators, and then you need paid professionals to deliver what they promise.
Mm-hmm.
So tell.
Yeah. I've had this thought about acting and being someone else's paintbrush, which I often feel like, in the past anyway, I've felt like I'm not so much of an artist, even though I know an actor is an artist, but it's the director and the writer who really come up with the storyline and the message behind the performance, and then they hire the actor that they want, and they hire who they want them to look in a specific way and behave in a specific way and everything, and I do have a certain amount of artistic license in how I play that character, but the overall message and idea and story is not up to me, really. So I agree that if you have a specific vision and you want to put something on, like Goat versus Tortoise, it might not be within our interests to hire someone who has drastically different ideas about what the musical looks like. We have a specific vision and a specific story to tell.
I was thinking we need to hire professionals.
Professionals who do what they're told.
As you said, when you're a paintbrush working in a job, there is artistic license to contribute and make something better. In my experience, I need to, like when I'm dealing with any kind of team, sometimes the team comes up with better ideas than me by myself.
Yeah.
And so you give people a task, but you give them freedom to work within it. Like, just because someone's being paid as an artist, it doesn't mean they can't make art. Just because the person, as you described, the paintbrush analogy is interesting to me, but like, you can have like, it's not a dictator saying, you do this, you do that. It's like the director hires a person to manage the dancing, hires a person to manage the lights, hires a person to manage, and then they're saying like, right, here's a budget, get a result.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of, in what way do you think that the money changing hands changes the relationship for the worst?
I didn't say that it changes the relationship for the worst. I just said that it changes the relationship, I think.
Yes.
And maybe the paintbrush analogy is not the best one.
I do like it though.
Well, another one might be that there are creative artists and then there are interpretive artists.
Yes.
The director and writer would be the creative artists, and the actor gets given a script to interpret.
Yeah.
Or a classical musician gets given music and you interpret it and you express yourself through it. And neither one of those artists is a better or worse artist, but
there's different roles.
Yeah, different perspectives.
And like, if I'm allowed to live in fairyland for a moment, like I dream of like sort of having like parallel projects, some that are made sort of with the directive to produce a profit, of which a portion is it's like made available as a grant for people to apply for, to earn and do whatever they want with it. So it's like, there's always this, like when you have grant funding from the government or an arts organisation or patronage from an organisation with money to spend on art, the person can kind of write a brief, they get paid to do it with the money, and they can do whatever they want with it with no expectation to produce a return for it. It's like the art is its own return. That is what was prescribed. And it's like, some people have entire careers where they basically look up on the internet, find out where the grant money is, they apply for it, and they live off that, and they produce whatever they want. And I was thinking, I want to live in a hybrid world where I do like things for the market, for profit, and then have things that are under a more sort of a grant form where it's like, here's some resources, make whatever your heart is inclined to.
But I would rather live in a world where the resources is not an issue.
That's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
You can create the world for yourself.
If you don't need any resources.
And that's what people can design their life to require less resources so you can make whatever you want. But sometimes there's a bubble that you're like, it's hard to measure.
Well, that's going to affect the art. It's going to affect the art if you're making something in order to please the market.
Is there any art that is not affected by money? And why is that an aspiration? Why is that desirable?
When you play the piano, are you not just playing it because you want to express yourself? And
Mozart, his entire life, was being paid for by the Medici family, who's just a family of Italian bankers. His entire life was just paid for by bankers, banking patronage. That produced...
So resources was not an issue for him?
Yes, but no, resources was available to him. So when you want to live life as an artist, resources is never out of the question. Like it's always part of the question. It's like, how did this famous English artist make all his life? Oh, he was a trust fund kid with a $15 million inheritance and did whatever he wanted and could change the world. So like, it can't be a goal of like, oh, become financially independent and then make real art. I think there can be like,
why?
Because that's unrealistic to prescribe. It's like, you want to be a professional artist, right? Right. Step one, become financially independent. It's like, that's, I think because that by definition is like either get a job or get lots of money or get enough, be able to subsist off whatever you're earning. It's but that is resources. You're not forgetting resources. You're definitely factoring resources into the equation.
But it doesn't have to be financial. You just have to have somewhere to sleep and food to eat. And
I kind of disagree. Like that is like, there's a world we live in, and you need a place to sleep and food to eat.
Yeah.
And like, I'm trying to think of advice that I can go to art school and be like, right, you want to become a professional musician, find free rent and find free food and completely reject capitalism. Like, I don't see that as being, it's a path. I just don't see it as being like a path that like who that you know of who do you admire?
I'm just wondering what it would be like if resources wasn't an issue and we could just create things for the sake of creating things.
Okay, if I see, I would like to live in this world for a moment. I would like to join you here, Will,
Right.
like respectfully, because I think I'm definitely caught up in this, like in the world now, and let's live in this world. So tell me about this world.
I think there would be more art in which people really say statements that aren't supposed to be said, and challenge the status quo more often rather than trying to please the status quo. I think people would question things and our society might develop more quickly and better improvements would be made because people aren't trying to make money with their art. They're actually trying to make statements about what they disagree with about the world and want to improve.
Because that's a word I've been coming across lately is the word dissident, like a person who speaks against the status quo. And one thing I read was that there's three kinds of dissidents. Anonymous ones, like on the internet, they just kind of shout that the government that bankers are stealing money and we need to sort of tear down the system. It's horrible, it's corrupt, it's the rich and the poor, it's wealth inequality, it's racial injustice, all like there's anonymous dissidents. Then there's professional dissidents like people on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, they're being paid to say something and then like they'll never tell the truth because if they tell the truth, they might lose their job and their income. So like the money censors them from speaking the truth, which I like is valuable in true art, if I'm correct. And the third kind of dissident in this model it's a word called the trustafarian, which is somebody who is so rich that they can tell the truth with no repercussions. And so
they either have to be rich or not need money at all.
But if they don't need money at all, they could be still economically vulnerable. So if they speak truth to power, they could just be squashed or ripped away or like dragged away, put into a bus. Like dissidents actually do bring consequences to themselves. Speaking the truth does have consequences.
Yeah.
So,
But not the last one doesn't make sense to me. That person has to be so extremely rich that they can say things without caring.
it's not to say that like
I think someone can have nothing and say things without caring. Have you seen Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon? This movie about
tell me.
Saint Francis of Assisi.
Tell
Built this church and had nothing, basically a homeless man, and then went and confronted the Pope about all the wealth that he had. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't share. I'm not as optimistic. Like I have a bit of a bleak view of the world in terms of oh man, this is a totally different topic than I sort of intended to talk about. But I hope you're enjoying it.
I am.
This notion that power is a very difficult sort of problem in the world, and historically, usually I don't want to say only, but usually power restrains power, and some people talk about like an idea flow where it's like stories, art, music, culture flows down to politics, which flows down to the people. Some people said that there was a TV show in America which brought down the Soviet Union, Dallas. There's a show called Dallas, and Dallas was art which showed middle class American existence with banal sitcom drama, and people in the Soviet Union had no food, had nothing, and they were being crushed by the power structures there, and the way things were. Stalin, Khrushchev, Brezhnev at the very end, and basically it was like the story. It was art that brought down the Soviet Union. That's an oversimplification, of course. That's not the only thing, but it's like an idea can spread. So I agree that one voice can change the world, like a butterfly in a hurricane, and practically, how do you change the world more? Do you think that minimizing your life's expenses and removing yourself from the financial system is the best way to change? Or it's a way to change the world? I don't have a question. I almost have a question.
Well, I guess I've been experimenting with it, okay?
Yeah.
So I live in a van, so I don't have to pay rent.
Yes.
And I've been experimenting with biodiesel, getting free oil from the fish and chip shops, and you can run a diesel engine on that. And dumpster diving at Farrow Fresh and getting quite a lot of food from there, and trying to get my expenses as close to zero as possible, so that I don't have to work a job, so that I have loads of time to do whatever I want, and a lot of that time is spent sitting and relaxing or being with friends, and then ideas come out of this huge yawning gap of time that I can just do whatever I want, and then all of a sudden an idea of some art comes out of it, or some intention that I have deep inside myself that I really want to express, which is not for becoming rich and famous. It's just because I want to. Do you know Marina Abramovich? The artist Marina Abramovich.
Tell me.
She does really crazy, very kind of gory performances. She did one quite recently at the Serpentine Gallery in London, which was not that gory, but she sat in a chair for about 3 months, I think, 8 hours a day, and people came and stared into her eyes. Yeah, I think this kind of art, which obviously she was getting paid hundreds of thousands of whatever. Yeah. But she started out as doing these very weird performance art pieces that made people really uncomfortable, but really questioned their humanity and she would starve herself, and her and her husband at the time had these gas masks that they breathed each other's air until they fainted. And this is the kind of thing that I'm actually quite interested in doing, even though I'm not going to get paid any money to do that kind of thing, but it will really affect people and wake them up. And
I mean, I have a criticism, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you talk about being able to kind of live off the grid and sort of unplug, it's like you're navigating around society in a world. You're sort of like, finding ways to kind of not be sucked into the traps that everyone sets up, like rent or mortgages and jobs and car payments. There's all these traps that life can hold on to, and you're escaping from it. And you're free. You're very free. Like what you have described to me sounds like a wonderful life. But I would challenge as to, like, if you want to have a good life, enjoy things and make things and like experience things and meet people and collaborate with people, you're going to have a wonderful life. But I would challenge as to whether, I'll just say, like, in this path, in this season, I don't think you're going to change the world very much. What you could do, if I'm going to try and like give you a positive spin on this, what you've told me, it's a season for you to think and learn and see the world and experience, so that you can then change the world after. But I don't think that that existence impacts the world very much. It's like you observe the world, but you don't affect it. I think art, when you do art and you want to affect the world, I believe that requires intentionality. Like, I'm now going to change the world.
Yeah, I agree.
Because what you described as artist in London with staring at people's faces, and you spoke with a kind of a admiration, and you want to do that. I resonate with those feelings of like, that is very cool. I could do that, and I would get a lot of experience out of it. I don't think that's going to change. I would debate with you, which we don't need to debate right now, how much that changes the world. There is a part of kind of like elite, educated, sort of abstract art that is very cool to kind of rich people, and we all go like, ooh, that's very fancy and cool and visceral. But to things that I think you care about, it kind of doesn't affect. It's just like people from fancy schools talking to each other at fancy shows. And you can go do guerrilla art like Banksy and do like, hey, I'm a artist outside of the institutions. But that's different to changing the world. You're being an artist. It's like you're doing cool things. But if you want to change the world, that requires like time to change the world.
I agree. So this time that I have afforded myself by not having a job and not having many expenses, I end up with a whole lot of free time in order to look into myself and my mind and my subjective reality, and then and really decide what it is that I want to change, what those things are that I care about and want to change, and then have time to do those things carefully and properly and cleanly. Like, for example, I would like to make a documentary about the Palestine-Israel conflict. And I would like to go over there, and that's something that I would like to point a camera at and start conversations about.
To wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to share about what you're doing in Christchurch?
Yeah, at the moment I'm doing a Shakespeare play.
Shakespeare,
yeah. 12th night at the Isaac Theatre Royal from on the 12th, 13th and 14th of August. 2 shows a day. I'm going to be in a golden thong. Just a golden thong at some point.
Amazing.
I'm playing Orsino. It's going to be a wild ride.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I'm really excited I'm working with Derek Doddington, who did a few outdoor Shakespeare productions. His production company is Top Dog Theatre Company. So I've worked with him a few times, and he's someone who just does it for the love of it. He's not, I don't think he's expecting to make a huge profit, but he really has a lot of passion, and all the people there as well are there for the love of it, and I think it's going to be really, really good.
Amazing. And also, Goat versus Tortoise, watch out for that.
Yes.
I think that you are going to change the world, Will. I look forward to making things with you. You're an amazing person.
As are you.
Thank you for coming on the podcast to talk.
Thank you for inviting me.
This podcast episode is sponsored by the Crafted Coffee Company. If you go to craftedcoffeecompany.co.nz craftedcoffeecompany.co.nz and use the code ARTIST, and you'll get 6.9% off your next order.